Right, it's 4th of October, calling the F&A committee meeting to order at 6:43. Noting that Councilmember Holloway and Councilmember Christensen are both present. Councilmember Christensen virtually, also the mayor, city administrator, and supporting staff. And before we go into approving the agenda and the rest of the business, if there's no objection, we'll go into executive session to consider a matter.
To consider an actual litigation matter and potential litigation matter under RCW 42.30.110 paren 1 paren small I paren small Roman numeral 1 and small Roman numeral 2.
Right.
And small numeral number 2?
Yes, that'd be the potential litigation. One is the active, the other.
Hearing no objection, we will now go into executive session. We invite city attorney, Parks and Public Works director, mayor, city administrator to remain.
Correct.
We expect to be back at 7 o'clock.
Before I forget.
Steal this from Mike before he gets back. All right, I'm taking your chair. I want the power.
He already ran to the back of the room.
That's right.
So jet lagged, she was like asleep.
Right, it's 7:05, calling the F&A committee meeting back to order following executive session. Move on to approval of the agenda. Any comments on the agenda? Whoops, I lost track of her. Where is she? There she is. One issue is I think we've got agenda bill 22-140 human services funding came to the wrong committee. That should go to the community development committee. So I think we need to take that off the agenda.
I think there was a policy that showed that it should go to F&A. Yeah,
I've got the council rules of procedure that say that it goes to that committee, and it's always gone there since I've been on the council.
It did go there last time.
Yeah. And the time before. And that's in the council rules of procedure where it assigns that to the community development committee.
So then the policy must be wrong.
Yeah, there must be.
Well, I think this just shows, Mayor, one of the reasons you guys are asking for this policy cleanup, the policy is a very old policy. I think it's a couple decades old, and I think the council rules of procedure were updated since then. And this is just one of the things I think you've been pointing out. We've got old procedures that need to be cleaned up. The draft procedures, is that the right term? Procedures? Policy, the draft policy, sorry, doesn't carry forward any discussion about which committee it would go to. So I think even in the draft policies, we're not carrying that forward. So I think it's just an old, long since outdated by council rules of procedure.
Okay. Should we take that to next CD committee then?
I think the timing's okay on that, right?
Yeah, what's the impact of pushing out 2 weeks?
I don't think that would be too much impact. Like I said, would just have to be, well, assuming the mayor's proposed budget is accepted, the recommendation will be under that budget. So it's not, there's no concerns there, but
Is the amount that the committee's recommending the same as what's in the mayor's proposed budget?
it's a couple $100 below.
Okay,
So
very close though.
Yeah, very close.
All right, so then let's remove that from the agenda. Any other comments on the agenda? If there's no objection, then we'll take the agenda, the amended agenda as approved. See no objection, it's so approved. See if there are no members of the public present in the council chambers. You can check online. We can figure out how to do that. There we go. Let's see, do I do this button here? You guys see that we have a city employee in the attendees. Could probably be promoted if you like. Oh, okay, got it. All right, see no members of the public online either. Therefore, there's no members of the public to make public comment. We'll move on to minutes. Any comments or adjustments to the minutes from the last meeting?
No comment.
All right, if there are no objections, then we'll take the minutes as approved. Seeing no objection, the minutes are so approved. Approval of the warrants and claims, consideration, approval of the claims report dated October 10th, 2022. Any questions or comments? By the way, I'll mention to the committee members, I've received no communication from any other council members with questions or comments regarding the claims report. All right, seeing no comments or if there are no objections, we'll take the claims report as approved for forwarding to the council on the consent agenda. Seeing no objection, is so approved. Moving on to if there's no objection, let's reverse the order we're taking these two agenda bills in and take financial management policy first. It doesn't seem to be objection. I think regarding the financial management policy, I guess I'm kind of curious. So there are changes in here that the committee said no to, but they're still in. So I'm just wondering, is that sort of intentional, and what's sort of the plan of how this goes to council then? Because I don't think the committee will approve this as drafted.
Chair, the next steps for that red line version was for committee members to provide their feedback. So if we missed something that you had intended to remove or revise, in the proposed financial management policy, then we would like to hear that so that we could adjust the language. And so be happy to do that now, like we have done in the past committee meetings, so that we could make those amendments. And you have the latest red line version that the committee went through. So we're looking for that final feedback. If we did not show that we were interpreting what you were requiring, then that's something that we'd be happy to, have that discussion with.
Okay, most of what I saw was, I thought not significant. The only thing that seemed to be substantive was the purchasing and contracting matrix. I thought that there were not going to be changes to that, but I see there's still changes marked there.
Some of those changes, if I could just take a minute to get to that section, were to add in a purchasing card. Part of the section on expenditures and procurement included a change from our current credit card process or use of that card. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to reflect that a purchasing card was an appropriate way to make a payment. So that is why there are additions to that. We did hear the committee about the levels of authority and that were no change. I think that is, we did not change those, or we changed those back.
Changed it back.
Oh, so they were changed and now so the red line is change them back. I see.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. I didn't do a comparison. I just said, what? Why is that changing?
It took me to like, what?
Okay. Do you, so on that, with regard to the purchasing card, is there any way we can even make that more? I believe that the committee doesn't want to, like, what purchasing cards or credit cards or like how you administer those. I think the committee, my understanding, my recollection of our conversation is we want to leave that to you to figure out. So is just calling it purchasing card, like, is there even something more generic we could do that would sort of give you more, or are you satisfied this is what you need?
No, really, I'd be satisfied with leaving purchasing card in there because it is then an approved form of payment, because in this commitment authority, it specifically says purchase cooperative vendor roster. So it actually, lists the method with which we procure. So we were keeping with that same framework in that identifying that a purchasing card was appropriate. The administration of that commercial card program is something that is just that, it's administrative. We would have that in procedures for departments to follow and follow internal controls.
Okay. The only other things I have are, I consider them minor, so I feel like I can just send you it. The only thing I wasn't, so I marked up a copy, is there, but I'm not quite done, but trying to figure out the best way to get that to you, because I think that what we have is just a PDF.
I can send you the Word version.
Would that be all right? And
Sure.
then I can just do a track changes. You'll be able to see that they were from me, and then you'll be able to, I think, see.
The changes are tracked by the person who's making those proposed edits. That is the document that we would then provide to the full council for the full council to deliberate on. And what we can do then is, if the council is agreeable to all of those changes, then we hit accept all the changes and stop tracking, and we have a new financial management policy.
All right, I'll send them to you. If you would send that Word document, I'll just put in there and send it back. I'll send it to the other committee members as well. But just to be clear, that's one council member's request. That's not even a request of the committee. So, look at them. If they're agreeable, wonderful. If not, then all you have is a request from one council member. So
we'll put in that final tracked change version so that the council can see if you've made a recommendation or another council member has made a specific recommendation. We'll make sure that it's known, full transparency on who's making that proposal.
all right. And by the way, if there are some that you sort of think there's a reason to say no, good chance if you just sort of ping me and say, here's why I think that's a bad idea, I'll say, oh, didn't think of that, fine. Because I don't view the things that I have as being that substantive.
Okay.
Kara had her hand
Ah.
up one time.
Pro Tem, If,
Mayor, yes, go ahead.
so do you have a statement on the purchasing card, the $1,000 limit? So if someone is going to do training, they're going to charge their card. But now if they need to stay in a hotel, they may need to use their supervisor's card or something else, because the $1,000 limit is pretty limiting. So what was proposed was 2,000.
Yeah, that's why that's actually where I got all confused about the numbers and the dollar amount, because it looked to me like it was lowering it from 2,000 to 1,000. And my thought was, why would you lower that
We had proposed to increase it.
to 2,000?
That's correct.
And we had said no changes. Okay. And so Mayor, your point is 1,000 is going to be pretty tight for like travel is
Absolutely.
the one you're
Right.
worried about.
So the supervisor may need to charge it on their credit card so that the person that's traveling can go and charge their credit card
Mm.
with the hotel and expenses.
And is
Otherwise, they
it,
have to wait till the next month.
right. And is it your view that just getting it to 2,000 kind of pretty much gets rid of that problem?
It's correct. It creates efficiencies. It creates that, in some cases, folks go to, use their card and they're embarrassed because they're,
Ah.
they have no more credit limit.
I have no objection.
Councilmember Christensen, unless you put your hand up, I'm going to assume you have no objection to that either.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm agreeable to that. I think $2,000 is an appropriate limit.
Yeah, so would you please then, we agree with you.
Okay.
Please, would you change the purchasing card to, so I guess it's just that first row. So it'll become under 2,000. Is that what it'll do?
That's correct. If you're looking at the top two line items under
Yeah,
material
it'll be
supplies.
2 to 75. Okay.
They would both, so under 2,000, under 1,000, which is where it currently is,
Mhm.
that would change to 2,000. And then in the next line item, that $1,000 floor would change to 2,000.
Got it.
But the max, at that level would still stay at 7,500.
Great. Okay. Please, we
Okay.
agree. All right. So then, yeah, let's try last chance, last call, if you will. Let's get any changes to Ms. Ferguson this week. So, I'm going to suggest that. So let me just ask, so what is the thought of what we will put in the hands of council members to help them through this? I think, are we going to give them a red line and a clean, or I think giving them all the policies? I'm just worried about how we help them not have it just be too heavy to get through.
Well, we did provide the full council in advance for study, the red line version.
This guy that I'm
Yeah,
holding.
exactly.
Okay.
Before we just made this change. So what we do, my practice is similar, is that the updated red line version. So what you provide, and just a reminder, is that we have a deadline for that council agenda to be published. And then the red line version to show all of the changes, and then a clean version. So that if someone wanted a clean read of what's being proposed and how that policy would look going forward, they would have that document as well.
So you're going to give them a red line version and a clean version.
Correct.
And you're not going to give them the historical, the red line covers that.
The red line should cover that, because that red line is the original proposed policy.
Yeah.
So you can see what was proposed, similar to the budget, similar to how it works, is that they can see what was originally proposed, the changes that the council has made, and then a clean version of what you'd be approving through a resolution.
All right, then, with that in mind, and with final, it's like the auctioneer. Yeah,
Going once,
going once, going twice. Got anything left, send it to Ms. Ferguson this week, sooner the better. But then I think if there's no objection, then we'll take this as approved to go to the full council with our recommendation that it be adopted. I think that, yes, we're supposed to recommend, yes, that it be adopted. Trying to remember if we were admonished
That's right.
by city attorney.
Consent or non-consent?
Not unconsent. I think if you could be prepared just to answer questions, I mean, see what other committee members think. I don't think a presentation really, there's a lot here. I don't think it can be effectively summed up into a short presentation. So I think instead, you should be ready to take questions. And of course, the committee members will also be ready to weigh in on our thoughts on what's in here. And if you could just be ready to take questions to council if they should have any.
Yeah, we can absolutely handle it that way.
All right, so then if that sounds good to folks, then we'll take this as approved and with recommendation for adoption onto the full council agenda.
Thank you.
See no objection, so approved. Just, I know from comments made, the other council members, the other committee members feel the same way. This was an enormous task. I just think you did a fantastic job with it. And I don't think that's just my point of view. I think the committee feels the same way. All right, agenda bill 22076, presentations regarding the budget, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'm going to kick this off before we kind of get started with a couple of our department directors. Just to provide, any council has heard this presentation a little bit before the intro. Just to give some background on September the 12th, 2022, the administration provided council with a financial forecast, as well as the mayor's originally proposed 2023-2024 biennial budget. Since that's time, we've been working through this kind of centrifuge internally for the most part, figuring out where I've used that term. You love it. You love it. No.
It's a good one. Go with it. All right.
Basically, to figure out what can we potentially squeeze right from this orange for the most part, so that we can really set ourselves up well for the next 2-year period. And so working with the department directors and the administration, we have found some things that we could do a bit differently over the next 2 years to kind of help us in this kind of, for what we need to accomplish next. In terms of the next steps, once we finish this today at the FNA committee, these department presentations, we're going to return to the on October the 10th to the full council to have kind of a collaborative discussion. At this point, we are turning the budget back over to council. It is the council's budget at that point, and we're hoping to see kind of what your priorities are, maybe what some of your questions are that we can hopefully answer. I've got Jen Ferguson here, our finance and HR director, helping me track your questions as we kind of go through some of these presentations today. In fact, because this is the FNA committee, I just want to share this with you very briefly, the kind of tracking log that we have that's a part of your screen right now. So in essence, we are recording your questions. So far, we've recorded 21 questions overall from different council members or committees, for example. We're going to hopefully provide a staff response within this spreadsheet itself. Well, we'll pause for a moment here. And then in essence, so what we're hoping from this is kind of figure out what direction do you want to go with the budget overall. This is an opportunity for, say, council over the next couple months to amend the proposed budget to reflect what your priorities are overall for the city. And so we're hoping to kind of track all this as a part of our matrix that you see here in front of you. And so just wanted to share that with you. With that said, I'm going to just pause for a moment for people to take a quick glance. And when they look up at me, that will hopefully mean that they're done. I got one here.
So is your plan to like circulate this periodically to council members, or kind of how might council members sort of have access to this?
Yeah, so the intention is to circulate this periodically to council members so they can see the staff response, especially in what the recommended dollar amount changes are. So that back and forth is going to be really critical. The communication back and forth between council and the administration is going to be really critical. And we think this document served that purpose overall.
I mean, I think that's a really smart move, and hopefully we'll get us through a bunch of issues. Because we can see the question, we can see the response, and then if that's done, then it's done.
Right, then hopefully that issue has been kind of dealt with for the
Yeah.
most part. We can move on to the next one. So, well,
What, you're something, there's another one to move on to, or?
We've had long discussions on done things before.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay. Perfect.
Done.
So with that said, I'd like to invite our interim IT director up here, who's going to present IT, and then after that, we'll move on to finance and HR. Got the city attorney here for,
Will we get a copy of that spreadsheet tomorrow sometime?
So our goal is to, once we have a chance, because we've heard the same question, but asked in a number of different ways. So we need a little bit of time. Our plan was to provide that for the October 10th council roundtable as part of your budget document. So what Drew has indicated is that our goal is we're handing the budget to you. This is some big decisions. On October 10th, we'll do some final presentations, ask some questions, but then we're going to be listening for what do you want to keep in the budget? What do you want to add to it? What do you want to take out of it? And we're going to use the tracking tool so that we're answering your questions. We're documenting what you're advocating to edit in the budget so that everyone has clear understanding of what's being asked. And so it was our plan, is that October 10th is where we would provide, here's all of the committee conversations so far. Now, next step is for us to listen October 10th at the round table for the council to, take the budget and start to tell us what you want, yes or no.
Do you think you'll be able to circulate that then on so many of us have full-time jobs. We do our preparation for council meetings over the weekend.
Mhm.
Will you be able to send that out, say by end of Friday, so we'd have that to look at during the weekend, or?
I think that's absolutely possible. We want to, it's with the agenda bill, so we would be including that as an exhibit.
Oh,
The
okay.
budget is there. We'd intend to always be updating that tracking, that conversation tool. So that.
You'll
that
give
would
us
be
a
the plan.
snapshot in time, yeah.
That's right. And then we'll have it available for, I think, another way is to print it out. And so,
Hmm.
and Drew may have other, ideas to get you.
Yeah, it's just really hard for us to absorb new information during a meeting, right? So we want to be contemplative and deliberative and kind of think about things. So if, I know for me, if I have that to look at as I'm preparing over the weekend, it might knock out various questions that I might otherwise have on Monday and just help, right? And I think that might be the same for all the council members.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Drew.
okay. So with that said, and the introduction provided, I'm actually going to stop screen sharing and invite Chris up, who's prepared to give his presentation on IT. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, sorry, I've lost my people. Councilmember Christensen, go ahead.
Sorry, just two quick things then. For the meeting on October 10th, will we be able to see what the 2022 budget was in comparison with what we're looking at for the 2023 and 2024? Or will that take more time to produce?
So we think that question has been asked across multiple committees, and so we're intending to make that our number one priority. That
Okay.
means that maybe some other questions will not necessarily get answered as a part of this, which is overall, it's a level of service concern, right? And so I think we're hoping to game plan this a little bit tomorrow, basically, and then probably address that first one that you suggested. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was particularly important to me personally. And then the other thing, and this is probably more of an IT before we get into the presentation, but my video will not turn on. It says I'm not allowed to turn it on. If someone could do that, it may be a little bit easier when I have questions, if you can see me.
And
So
just
that was actually part of their presentation. So if some IT things don't quite work, they can kind of explain why additional funding might.
Or tell you maybe this is a great use of city funds, so that
so just for everyone,
quiet that one down in the back, right?
Yeah, so someone's working on this right now, Councilmember Christensen. I
Yeah.
think I see someone working on it.
All right, thank you.
So just for anyone following in the budget book, page 59 is the start of the information technology.
Good evening. I'm your interim IT director, Chris. I'm gonna start off with our first slide is our mission statement and along with our core functions and an organizational chart of our department. Of course, our mission is to deliver cost-effective and sustainable solutions throughout strategic partnerships, collaborative and trustworthy engagements, effective and accountable leadership that provides itself on innovation, responsiveness, and transparency and support of citywide operations and excellent service delivery to the community and its citizens. Our core functions are continuity service, which would include email application support, GIS, disaster recovery. Personal computing services, which includes desktops, laptops, and printers, and infrastructure services, which is our network, server, security, access control, and our service desk. And last but not least, our professional services, which includes training, acquisition, contract management, equipment lifecycle management, and external partnerships. During our 2021-2022 year, we have completed 1,408 service requests. We have partnered with finance, HR, and Parks and Public Works to launch the Munis ERP conversion project. We have migrated to the Civic Clerk platform to replace our old agenda packet builder. We have partnered with facilities to identify and correct power distribution issues for our IT infrastructure here at City Hall. And we began replacing virtual desktops with physical computers. And Mr. Drew, your slide. I can talk about it.
Questions about it, they can ask.
Yep. So for the proposed 2023-2024 biennium, we are requesting a $6.25 million. That would be 3.13 for 2023 and then 3.11 come 2024.
It goes down in the second year.
Yes.
Can you tell us why? I assume there's something you have to do in the first year that you won't have to do in the second year.
So there will likely be more work regarding the ERP project in the first year than in the second year necessarily, and so we will likely spend more money. In addition, a number of the enhancements that we've included as part of the packet, such as the core switch replacement, the firewall replacement, the broadband feasibility study, the council chamber audio video visual upgrade is also in 2003 too. So
well, that is what I'll present to you on the next slide. This is what our outlook and our work plan is. We are looking to expand and obtain an IT manager position. This IT manager will address certain needs more effectively, manage several projects scheduled for over the next 2 years, and to help free up some capacity to develop so that I can develop additional strategies to improve the level of service for other departments. We also have aging hardware, namely our firewall and our core switch. Our firewall is stated to be end of life, third quarter 2023. This is a necessary replacement to prevent attacks from outside of the city's network. And all network traffic is scanned in and out. So this is something definitely that we'd need to get replaced. Along with that is our core switch, which is also going to be end of life, end of service come second quarter 2024. Our core switch is what enables the routing of our data necessary at the core layer and also in between networks. So this is going to be our network brain, so to speak. Then we also have the council chambers upgrade. As we all know, it's in dire need of an upgrade. The upgrade will greatly reduce the effort required to administer the technology, so it'd be less of a IT support need. What we're looking for is a solution that would be maybe 1, 2 button pushes and a meeting is up and going without any need from us. That's what the plan is.
That would be good.
That would be very good. I agree. We also are looking to drive facility improvements to increase stability and sustainability of our IT systems. This would include a GIS systems upgrade. That's very important for our other departments as well as our citizens. A lot of our departments rely heavily on our mapping services, and as do our citizens. We're also looking to conduct a Wi-Fi audit to help out the other departments to make sure that their needs are being adequately met, both with their cell phones or with their laptop computers. We're also looking to implement IT security, monitoring, and control systems to increase the efficiency of IT delivery. This would include a citywide badge system and cameras. And then lastly would be the broadband feasibility study. What we're looking to is provide a path forward on what economic options might be available regarding the utilization of our existing conduits and the city-owned fiber, to see that if there is a possibility of a municipal broadband option for our citizens.
So can we, so I'll say it again. One, let's check the charter with Comcast, whether we can even do that. And if we are legally prevented, don't need to study it.
That it will be included in that feasibility study, because they'll be able to get all that information for us.
It's more a question to the attorney. It's a precursor to your study.
Okay,
You don't need to spend money on the study if it's not legal for us to do it.
gotcha.
So we need to look at that Comcast. It was a very generous charter. Oh my gosh, how generous. So I would not be shocked that there's not a non-compete something or other in there. But Bob, take a look at it.
Okay, I'll go with legal and I'll find out about that.
I will look at it. My recollection is that the current franchise with Comcast is quite old. It was a
But it was a
50,
75-year franchise.
50 or 75 year, right?
It's crazy.
I don't recall a non-compete
May not have been
in there
invented
at the
yet.
time, and I'm not right. And I'm not sure that there was broadband at
Yeah.
the time, but we'll take a look.
Phones back then.
No.
And then a council chambers audiovisual, what's the dollar figure on that?
Right now, we are looking at 108,000.
Can I ask so I want to go back. So one of the things that's remarkable to me, and this is not a criticism. I'm trying to figure out how to say it. So in my corporate environment, we have meetings similar to this, not exactly the same, but similar. We don't have IT on, there's IT support like in the building, but it doesn't require folks in the room to run all the equipment. The equipment actually is able to be run sort of by the users. I got the feeling that maybe what you were describing was something that would get a lot closer to that. Is that a right way to think?
That is the plan. Right now, our system is hand pieced together.
Yeah.
There's different components, and the reason why we're here mainly is for troubleshooting.
Yeah.
If something goes down audio, we don't expect staff to know how to be able to do that.
Mhm.
With this new system, we're anticipating that it's going to work. It's going to be a combined system, not a piecemealed system.
Well, that's what I see in my work environment in all our locations. So
Yes,
I know it's possible.
it is very much possible. Yes.
With that, I mean, we all sit in on council meetings. I mean, we see you guys here, we can all sort of in our mind add up the hours. If you guys are able to cut back how much staff you have to have on site, is that like, I'm guessing that could add up to a pretty significant number. And does that help in any way with, I see that you're wanting an additional head, but if we sort of were able to do these other things, does that free up enough hours that maybe you don't need that head yet? Or kind of like, what is there? So by spending on the equipment, do we free up some staff, or kind of what's your sense of that?
I would say that it would alleviate some of the overtime in that aspect, that there wouldn't be IT support. But bringing on an IT manager would also alleviate some of the overtime that the systems engineer position is currently doing. Since I am also the systems engineer, there's work that I have to do after hours that's very disruptive if I were to do it during the day. If we brought on a working IT manager, that position would be able to also do those functions.
So let me see if I heard you right. The IT manager is to address a different set of problems, doesn't have anything to do with what's happening here in council chambers. Number two, yes, we'll probably get some staff savings, but maybe that more hits on lowering like things like overtime costs. Did I hear you correctly? Did I paraphrase it back correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
you're correct.
Yeah, and you don't want the IT manager doing systems engineering. That doesn't work well.
Right.
But
Councilmember Christensen, any questions?
No, not at this time.
All right, thank you.
So, all right, thank you.
Oops, sorry, there's one thing just so that it's on record, love to know the comparison of the request to the previous budget. But I think I'm like beating a dead horse here, aren't I? You guys know that we want that, right? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
yeah, that line in the spreadsheet will just have tally marks.
How many times did that get out?
Dun, dun, dun.
The same thing asked, and so that totally get it. All right, we ready for the Finance and Human Resources Department presentation? Next slide, please. All right, so we continue to endeavor to provide transparent financial information, maintain our city's fiscal health, and adhere to financial policy. We also, in our mission are here to manage the financial and personnel services operations and deliver a high level of customer service. We have both internal customers as well as external customers for things like billing, B&O returns and licensing and things of that nature. What we do in the financial and personnel services programs are things like procurement and purchasing, our revenue and treasury management, our budget, payroll and benefits management, the capital improvement plan, financial reporting, debt management, the financial information system, that's the ERP implementation that we've been going through. Certainly long-term financial planning, important with regards to our forecasting and ensuring that the council has the right information at the right time. And then also manage the human resource programs. That includes things like recruitment and onboarding and personnel evaluations, performance management, you name it, really delivering the employee experience so that people want to come to Snoqualmie to work and kind of turn the tide with regards to the transitions, the many transitions that we've seen. In this slide, what you will see here is the finance and HR department with some restructure this year. HR kind of came under my umbrella. And so what's being proposed in this upcoming biennium is 2 new positions in the finance realm. That would be a revenue manager. We see that this position would be a working operational manager to.
Do you mind just for
We
1
have-
second? So
Okay.
page 25 and 26. In
Sorry,
essence,
we got lost, so just
essence,
back up a minute.
reporting the administrative departments collectively together.
Okay,
We're now having to go through each kind of individual office within that administrative department's functional classification. So you're not exactly gonna.
Okay, so it's in the big list that's
It
there.
is,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, okay.
The
Sorry,
staffing
could you
is-
just start over, just a little bit? You started talking about the positions and you kind of gave us the intro. I got all that, but you started talking about specifics and
Okay.
I didn't have anything to look at.
So in order to stick with our mission and our core functions, what we're proposing in this budget is to add 2 new positions. One of those positions is a revenue manager. So that is what I'll call as one of our operational managers. What appears there's some gaps with some oversight with regards to our revenue programs, our utility billing, our B&O tax program, cash receipting, things like that. So our licensing. So what we want to ensure is that we've got that working operational manager to ensure that we've got good programs, providing good customer service with the municipal implementation. That's ensuring that we are collecting the money that is due to the city. So working with businesses on B&O taxes, ensuring that, folks are getting the appropriate business license, ensuring that we're not missing out on some of those revenues. I can give you an example of an admissions tax. There are folks who, if they're going to charge admission to an event, they're charging the city tax according to municipal code, but they're not paying. And so right now, that's to me, ensuring that they're responding. And if they're not responding, and it's a city attorney getting involved, but someone to assist and ensure that we've got all of our revenues that the council has intended for us to bring in. So that's the revenue manager, and we provided that, a little bit more background in the budget.
So, do we have an idea of what additional revenue this position will bring in?
We're anticipating that we may be missing out on up to $300,000+ across the board. There's
Here?
uh,
For biennium?
that is per year
So
in the-
essence, the activity this position would engage in would be a B&O tax audit, which we're assuming we would collect about 1.5 times the cost of the position itself. In
So when you
addition.
say audit, this is some kind of activity that you're going to do with respect to people that should be paying us.
Mhm.
This is a function, this is a part of the B&O tax program that we have no one. So this is a gap. That's the example.
In addition, there are things like the comprehensive fee study that they could work on as well. Things like that, and support us with the ground emergency medical transport bill that we also include as part of the budget. So.
The other thing, just so I could finish with that, is that we have ILAs, we have contracts, we have agreements that there is a revenue component. We want to get into the habit of billing at the appropriate time, the developer agreement call for someone to provide a pass-through or to cover the cost. So we want to ensure that we are working with the direct service departments, getting that supporting documentation, getting it billed timely, aging reports, and then ensuring that we're collecting on those monies because we are cash basis. So if we are not billing in a timely manner, then that is not matched to our expenses. So that's what we see in this new position. Also, I wanted to add in from a grant standpoint, those grant reimbursements. Again, it's a billing effort. It's working then with the other departments to make sure that we are sending in those reimbursements in a timely manner. So someone is just kind of minding the store with regards to billing and receivables.
Did we get a bill out to those commerce guys yet on that Riverwalk? You don't have to answer that.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly, that's exactly the question that we get. And so, without having someone in that role, then Drew has to stop what he's doing, or Jerry has to stop what he's doing, and then we basically just upset the apple cart, and then we have to try to remember where we were at when we get back to, our day to day.
And how much a year is this position
So in essence, on page 21, you're gonna see what we intend from those three ongoing revenue sources. So we expect to, the goal is to generate roughly $247,189 from the audit, for
Not
example.
188, 189.
Well, I mean, that's 1.5 times the cost of the position. So as well as for 2024, $256,047 basically. But on page 21, there's more information regarding how much we intend to generate from.
So, and have those numbers been included in your revenue forecast?
Yes, they have.
Okay, you've
Mhm.
included the benefit for this position in the revenue,
Right.
but the return on investment, you're gonna get a big hit to begin with your first audit. And from there on, it's gonna be maintenance moving out. So I'm still curious if this position needs to pay for itself moving out. You'll get a big hit to begin with. You'll do an audit between business license and B&O and go get where the holes are. But after that, it's
Yeah.
gonna be onesie twosies from there on.
Well, the goal is to, hopefully that is reoccurring revenue, right, over time that would go towards supporting that position potentially. So.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
And that we would stay on top of these companies that may have not paid before, but will now.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
we got a few when we went and did the ARPA.
Mhm.
So,
Hmm.
yep.
Just one thing, when you first, so one thing I noted was you started your discussion was finance and HR. It's very common. One of the things I was really pleased at when I saw your chart there on the screen is, of course, there's a really important internal control balance that happens there between your payroll function and your HR function, right? So you get a segregation of duties there to make sure that things that shouldn't happen in payroll don't happen. So I was really pleased to see you're keeping that separate. That's always the worry I have in a small department is if HR and finance start getting intertwined, the internal control red flag goes up, right? Looks like you've got that covered. Is that kind of your point of view? You've got them separate? You
It
intend to
is.
keep those two functions separate?
Intend to keep them separate, having, and one of the things that we're proposing in this budget is instead of the HR manager, you'll see that in that staffing table, that we would be bringing on a management analyst
Yeah, I
to help
saw
with that.
Yeah.
We are also proposing that we would reclass the human resources assistant to that analyst. And then, of course, that we would be also requesting to add a budget analyst so that also helps with our ability to segregate duties and to amp up our internal control. And then, of course, the revenue manager also adds in that another layer of review. And
You're adding 4 positions?
no, we're proposing to add 2 in this department. We're
Hold on, you're
shifting.
adding to, but you're subtracting an HR. Am I understanding that you're kind of shifting some funds here? There's an HR supervisor, I don't know if that's the right title, but that position's gone now.
We're proposing that we would flop or switch the HR manager to a management analyst. And then we are
So you got
reclassing.
one paying for the other.
Yep.
So you're actually then net just one head up.
No, so if I can bring up that staffing chart.
What page was that, Mr. Boutte?
Page 26.
Didn't read the number.
All right, so page 26, what we're proposing is to switch the human resources manager and bring on a management analyst. We're also proposing to switch the human resources assistant and reclassify that position into a human resources analyst. So there net 0.
Well, sure.
You'll see at the bottom of our section is where the 2 new positions come in, and that is a budget analyst, which is a new position, an add, and a revenue manager new position that is an add for a total of 2.
So a bit of rejigging
Mhm.
and then two new heads.
Correct.
So what is the difference between the resource analyst and the resource manager? Yeah, that too.
Well, you said the resource manager and the resource analyst.
Yep,
It's just, it's the level of work, decision-making that position would have. Because HR was brought under the director, we did not see that a manager was needed in that area, but we needed more analyst positions because of the workload to build those HR programs. And so we see that we can do that with two analyst positions. We want to reflect the human resources assistant. That position is a position that is in my opinion, working out of class. And so we want to properly designate the position description, and that's why we are proposing to change the assistant to an analyst.
so the assistant becomes an analyst. The resource manager position just goes away,
It becomes a management analyst.
becomes a management analyst. Uh,
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
Councilmember
Oh,
Christensen.
Councilmember Christensen.
Hi, thanks. I just had a couple quick questions in terms of comparing the chart that we're looking at on page 26 versus the one that's on page 16. Because it looks like this staffing information is slightly different. And then I was also trying to determine then what happens with the ARPA Specialist Human Services Navigator position.
So thank you
I've
very much
got-
for your question. On page 16, that kind of describes the entire finance and HR department. So there's roughly 12.56 FTEs that we're proposing for 2023, 2024. However, the department is split out between two different funds. One is the general fund, which is where you see the majority of the positions. But then there's also a special ARPA local recovery fund as well, Fund 150, which begins on page what is it called? Page 44, which you'll find another, or page 45, where you're going to find another biennial budget staffing table as a part of that. That shows that ARPA specialist being converted into a project specialist.
Thank you.
Sorry, could
why-
you explain that? So is that a time limited position? So when the ARPA funds go away, that position goes away. You're just doing something during the time period while that's
Yeah.
still in place. Okay, I got it.
And that was like December 2024, right?
That's correct.
Right,
That
at the end
position
of
is
our-
limited term to the end of the new biennium.
Right.
Got it. So what you're doing is basically upgrading that position. Is what's happening. It's moving from one position to a elevated or a more senior position.
Changing the title of the position to align for special projects that may not that depending on the use of the ARPA funds, ultimately that position would still be doing our required reporting for ARPA and still primarily be supporting ARPA related work tasks. And so we wanted to change that position to better title, if you will. If you recall, in some job descriptions, I'm sure you're familiar with, is other duties as assigned and special projects. And so that's what
25%.
Yeah, in essence, this would not be converted into something higher, right? Necessarily, it's not converting it into a senior position, it's just retitling the position and realizing that the council's discussion regarding the ARPA funds about sending any sort of remaining funds to use during this time period for inflationary pressures means that there isn't necessarily exactly going to be that much that they may have to accomplish regarding ARPA in the future, and therefore we could utilize their services in better ways.
So it looks that there's a big comp increase. Is that not accurate?
Well, so part of the difference, I would say, is when did we bring on the ARPA coordinator?
Oh,
And
so it's
there's
not
a-
where, it's not apples to apples.
Tally
Right.
mark in that one
Okay.
column.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So this isn't about per se a comp increase. This is about changing the role
Right.
as you just
In
described.
addition, there are COLA increases.
No,
and
no, I understand
medical
that, but this isn't all about just like an elevated position. It's,
Right.
it's about redefining the role and therefore it's a different it's a different role.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Oh, sorry, Mayor, go, Councilmember Christensen, thank you for helping me on that.
Thank you, Mayor. And so this will continue to be a part-time role going forward, or is the rest of the position split somewhere else?
It is still a part-time position. It's a 0.56 FTE. That's current, and that's where we are proposing to keep it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there anything else in your presentation?
I did want to go quickly to slide 5 in the presentation for the and very, very quickly to kind of talk about, I've talked about the staffing proposals. Wanted to talk quickly about the continued implementation, the ERP, Tyler Munis financial information system. We're proposing that we would go through the effort of updating our cost allocation plan, our methodologies, take a deep dive into our internal service funds for those charges. We'd like to start introducing budgeting for outcome type methods or framework in performance management. If you recall, in the proposed financial management policy, that section on performance management is a placeholder. So we'd like to start working on and then working with council on what that policy might mean. And then, of course, conduct a comprehensive fee study. In the human resources realm, we want to continue to fill those vacancies and improve on all of those human resource programs. We want to modernize the recruitment efforts. Utilizing what we have started to implement is what's called the NeoGov Insights application. And that is just an easier way for hiring managers to screen applicants. We want to improve on all of those personnel services, like I'd mentioned before. So that is our proposed work plan, and that is tied obviously to the requested allocation. Happy
Just,
to answer any questions.
I'm not arguing against it. Don't misread me. I just want to make sure city administrator and mayor realize that third bullet, that is an enormously ambitious thing to do. It will touch every part of the organization, how you talk, how you run your departments, how you talk to the outside world. It's a big, big thing. I'm not talking against it. I just want to make sure you guys, everyone realizes how big a thing that is that you're talking about there. Cool.
We use the word introduce.
Introduce, yeah. Even introducing, it's, everybody gets, that's turning everything on its head, which I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying it's a big, big thing.
Baby steps.
That tie in with the strategic plan initiative.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I understand. I know what you're talking about. I'm just saying, I live in your world too, but it's just a big thing.
As long as you're adding the position, you should have a bullet on there for additional revenue recovery. For that position.
The revenue manager.
Yep.
We'll add that into, I think that was, you're referring to maybe perhaps starting with slide 4 of the presentation, and we'll be providing all of our presentation slide decks to the council. So we can add that is that we're looking to enhance our revenue sources.
I think his point is he's trying to help you make your slides speak for themselves,
Absolutely.
because you won't get a chance necessarily to make the presentation to everybody. So if you get that in the slide, then they can see it.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's a hint, I'm gonna be looking, did we really get the benefit for that position? Maybe that's not a question this biennial, but it may be a question next biennial for the continuation of that position. And, okay.
All right. Does
Thank
that
you.
complete your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councilman, committee members? No, thank you very much.
So next up, we're gonna call Bob Sturbank to the stand. No, just kidding.
He's been planning that for like hours. I think that may have been a committee that worked that one up,
Yeah,
though.
perhaps.
Welcome to the centrifuge.
Better than being welcome to the matrix. Okay, so we're gonna start. This is the part where I tell you things that you already know about what I do because you see the legal department on a regular basis. Our mission is to provide legal services to the entirety of the city, the council, the mayor, city administrator, all the departments. I think what we do touches virtually every aspect of the organization from time to time. We prepare the legal documents that you adopt. We review, draft and or review contracts that Parks and Public Works presents to the committee for city capital projects. We work on the labor contracts, the personnel, human resources matters, the policies, the financial policies, all of those things. Where we are able to, we represent the city in outside litigation in front of administrative agencies and courts. From time to time, we retain outside counsel to assist with that, depending whether there's capacity in-house and or whether there's specialty legal areas where we would benefit. And then also the risk management functions, more recently in the past year, were moved from the city clerk and are handled by confidential legal assistant, deputy city clerk. And so those are in the legal department now. So what did we do the last year? We helped Parks and Public Works Department get the record office revetment built that necessitated not just some complex contracting and construction issues be addressed, but some intergovernmental agreements with King County, between King County and the City Council, which you saw on a number of items. The vaccination directive and masking directive, we assisted with getting that drafted, getting it rolled out, processing requests for exemptions, and litigating the grievance arbitrations, which I'll talk more about in a second. Also participated in all of the negotiation of all of the collective bargaining agreements and some successor agreements, as well as a memorandum of understanding. And then, of course, the mill site, the EIS, as well as the planned commercial industrial plan, assisted in a review of those and defending the appeal in front of the city's hearing examiner, and now the matter that's in front of the council. On the city clerk side, in addition to risk management, she helped the clerk roll out and implement the Next Request public records software, which has been a tremendous assistance tool to have. And then also, as I said, she's taken on the risk management duties. Question?
I just remembered something I have to do. Go ahead.
Okay. So our biennial budget request looks very much the same and generally just rolls forward, since most of it is staff and related costs, rolls forward the numbers that we received from Ms. Ferguson, Mr. Boutte. With one exception, we have asked for what we see as a one biennium request for an increase in the budget for contracted legal services. So
Is there a page number we can see this? Sir?
Unfortunately, we had to break out the table.
Sorry, I can
because,
watch that.
yeah, this is the city attorney component of our administrative department's conflict classification table, so.
You asked for outside consultant first part of the biennial for what purpose?
for a number of different matters that either both ongoing and anticipated to come up in the biennium. Those include, for example, the CA carry matter, which will now be moving finally to the Court of Appeals. They do have an appeal as of right of the summary judgment dismissal that the city obtained, as well as the attorney's fee, that we will want to protect that on appeal. That's been handled by outside counsel since the inception of that matter, actually, since the very start of the contract. So we anticipate additional expenditures there. The grievance arbitrations that I mentioned, we are bringing in some assistance from Summit Law. Those have taken a tremendous amount of time to work through the arbitration process, both myself and Ms. Astrachan, as well as Ms. McCauley. We have one of those fully completed. It took almost 5 full days of arbitration time. The second one is midway through, and we're 2.5 days through. So that's arbitrator time, court reporter time, our time as well. And it's really impacted the ability to maintain service levels through the organization. So the third one of those, we will complete the one that is outstanding. The third one of those, we are going to bring in Summit Law Firm to assist, Summit Law Group. The matter about which I spoke earlier this evening, the Gerard matter that touches on some Clean Water Act litigation, we've utilized Van S. Feldman for some assistance there. We anticipate carry grievances continuing into next year, and then other matters potentially as well. So that's the reason for the request.
Except for the pandemic stuff, shouldn't you expect some other things to come up in the second half of the biennial requiring outside consultant?
Certainly. And that's the reason that this is not a 1/2 biennial request.
Okay.
We can identify some things, in the short-term horizon. It's hard to see the second year. Hard to know how much
Oh, no, it's a
litigation
total
is going
whack.
to roll forward out of the mill site, right? So,
Total whack. I agree. I just didn't want you to be.
but,
totally
we're-
hanging there. Okay.
yeah,
And I can't.
no,
see
it's
the
not a
numbers
1
from
year.
here.
Understood. Yeah. If you could, you would see that it's an amount for both years. And
Okay.
and then a total for the biennium. Is there,
No, I
is
don't
that
think
it?
there is. So
Anything more from,
unless you want, you kind of talk about what you plan to do.
right, going forward? You'll recognize many of those things I've already touched on. At Parkway SR 18 matter, we anticipate that to go forward. Other things not on this list, the comprehensive plan update. I know Ms. Artechi will be moving that forward. Coming up, that will require our attention as well.
I'm the, so, I sure let's ask myself if I can ask you a question. So, my question is, so I know this comes up. This is something that comes up from time to time, which is the whole question of how different cities of our size handle their, I'll use the term legal needs. Some cities our size outsource all their legal. So I think that's a correct statement. Some cities sort of do some intermediate. We've been trying to sort of calibrate that correctly for certainly the whole time I've been on the council, of trying to figure out sort of that right mix of how much do we use outside, because outside counsel is much more expensive than on staff counsel.
Correct.
On the other hand, they also have areas of expertise that on staff counsel won't always have. So there's sort of this magic of how do you sort of try and balance all that, right? So we made the big decision, I want to say 2 bienniums ago, but that might be
That's about
wrong,
right.
to bring on an assistant city attorney. Do you have any sense of, well, I guess I'll ask a 2-part question. The bigger question, the main question is, do you have any sense when you look at our total that we spend on legal, if you will? And I know this is just a really hard question to ask, because the issues that one city has can be completely different than the issues another city has. So just looking at cities of the same size doesn't imply they should, doesn't,
Right.
if one thinks therefore that the legal department should be of the same size. It's just that's just way too simplistic. It's just not like that. Anyway, having said that, the big question is, how much are we spending on legal? Sort of how effective are we on that balance of in-house and external? That's sort of one part of my question. And the second is just in terms of our overall spend, how do we feel like, do you do any benchmarking? Do we have anything where we can sort of say, look, we're low against other cities, or we're average, or we're high, but here's why we think that is happening? And like, do you have any sense of that kind of context?
I don't have any current benchmarking to speak to. It's been a while since I've looked at that. In the past, we were certainly underspent, given the number of issues that the city faces on a regular basis, as well as the things that we litigate. And the reason for that is a similar conversation when we look at the comp and class study. We're a full service city. And so there are cities 2, 3, 4, 5 times our size that don't provide any of the cities, the services that we do. And consequently, their day-to-day staff obligations and their legal obligations are much smaller. And so they can have an outside contract for just general municipal legal services, and that's fine. So what we found the last time we looked at this was that we were under resourced from a day-to-day basis because of all of the ongoing matters, plus the more complicated things that have been a part of the city's history for a long time, like the mill site, like other master plan development, unusual projects like that are on the horizon. Actually, we didn't mention that, the model train, things that implicate multiple different areas. And then there's still the litigation. So those are things that are more expensive on an hourly basis, but also more readily carved off and assigned to outside counsel. So I think the balance is pretty good right now. We're trying to make sure that, given what we've just experienced in the last year and a half or so, that we aren't falling behind on service delivery. And so that's why we've made that ask. If the committee or council's interested, I can gather some more benchmark.
Well, so the
data.
only thing I'd say is, so just looking back on my experience of what I've learned about how these questions, since I've been on the council, how those have been answered. My recollection is early on, having some council members ask some pointed questions, if you will, then learning the response to that, learning the complexity that you just sort of touched on some of that, and getting to sort of the level of understanding that I feel like I have today. We have a bunch of new council members, so I would just say it wouldn't surprise me if one or more of them had similar questions. So you might sort of try and prepare. Like, it's one thing when you're talking to some of us who've been around for a while. It's another thing maybe when some new council members want to try to understand that a little better. So you might want to sort of, just on the event that they do ask, you might want to be prepared with sort of take them through that, not in an hour, but in a concise way, but help them maybe understand basically what you just touched on.
Happy to do it.
I take it you continue to believe your staffing level of on staff is the right
Yes.
place.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially if we can pull our bandwidth back from some of these by judicious assignment outside for some of the more time consuming matters.
Yeah, but Councilmember Holloway said that you should look into that bandwidth matter before we go.
Before I look into bandwidth, yes.
Yes, before.
Understood.
Okay, any other questions? Oops, I've lost my video. Councilmember Christensen, any questions?
No, I think that all the questions that I have were already answered, so I'm fine on my end.
See, I see how you lawyers are. You like mind meld, and she doesn't have to ask questions because you're like telepathically telling each other the answers. I see how you are.
They get those classes at Hogwarts, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
I just want the wand.
Sorry, let me just sort of do a time check. How many more presentations do we have?
So we have 3 more presentations. We're hoping these go relatively easy. We've got the executive, city clerk, and communications up next.
So let me ask this. So I know that at our next meeting, we're going to talk about the revolving funds, you don't call them, what do you call them?
The
The
internal cost allocation.
internal, yeah, the internal cost allocation
Funds,
funds, internal
basically,
service
yeah.
funds. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I know we're going to spend time on that. Because we've sort of run over our
Yeah.
target time. So I'm wondering, should we push these three to the beginning of the next meeting, or would you recommend we just power through it tonight?
Well, I think that sounds reasonable, right? To push these three to the next one. We will have to be pushing Parks and Public Works presentations as well to the next Parks and Public Works Committee too. I think we have plenty to discuss potentially at October the 10th, that date. Like you said, we have an internal cost allocation presentation plus budgetary assumption presentation as a component to that as well. And then after that, then it's kind of open for general discussion between the committee members. So
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, that's fine. As long as we get
Councilmember
to-
Christensen, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
So I think maybe start out with these three. I'd start with these because especially given your comment that they may be quick, I think, they're relatively straightforward. And then those other items then following because they may be more, there may be more discussion involving them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Good. So then maybe everyone can get home. Any other business that we need to conduct tonight? We're looking at administration. Anything else we need to get through tonight?
Need to review the council
Oh,
agenda.
thank you. Let's move on to reviewing the council agendas. Okay, first is October 10th. Roundtable on biennial budget at 6 p.m.
And I would have two things to add to the council agenda
Yes,
as presented. Under presentations, swearing in of police officers and introduction of our mental health professional.
oh, great. I think I
They're-
may have an updated copy because I
they're
had
in
those
there.
on there.
Okay.
If let's add an item for council committee and liaison appointments. I think we can always pull it if it doesn't happen, but I think there's a council liaison appointment will be changing. So let's put that on the agenda. We can pull it off if it's not needed, if there's no objection. Okay, and then, all right, let's see, public hearing. That's just a placeholder where it says about public hearing. We're not actually planning one. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So we got the presentations, our proclamation, consent agenda. Great. So we'll have maybe can someone remind me, did we do the first read of the school impact fee ordinance?
We did.
So this will be the second read
Second round.
plus the agenda bill on the adoption of the school's capital facilities plan.
Right.
Got it. Let's see. So agenda bill 22-140, we'll pull that off, right? Because that'll go back through CD. So any of those Parks and Public Works items
Well,
go
I'm
under
confused. I
consent?
don't believe we talked agenda bill 138 in our meeting. Was I asleep during that conversation?
Oh, that was supposed to be moved, parametrics to the next one. So yeah.
All right, so we just pull that off.
I was not asleep. Let this-
I was really hoping you were going to tell me he was asleep because then we could really like taunt him and things like that.
And I believe,
Mike, that goes to the next Parks and Public Works Committee meeting.
Right.
Okay.
and I believe we actually said with downtown speed limit moved to consent
Correct.
Right.
to see if somebody wanted to take it off just to talk speed.
It's like.
All right, so then 139 and 144 in Parks and Public Works are on non-consent, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Councilmember Christensen.
Just confirming that the legislative priorities was pushed. So I don't.
Right,
But I'm guessing that's a time issue, yeah.
so that's under committee of the whole. We should add an item for legislative priorities. Councilmember Christensen, I'm sorry, I've forgotten, did we end up making any presentation on that, or this will be the initial presentation on that topic?
At the last council meeting, basically, we just asked council members to think about what it is that they find important and that they'd like to include, so that there was some time instead of just asking them to basically shoot from the hip.
Great. So then we're hoping that at this meeting, we'll actually collect those items and form a list, right?
Correct.
Great. All right, and we've put some time in for committee of the whole then to spend additional time on the mill site, the two topics related to the mill site. Okay.
A fairly short agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was just sort of thinking about. Yeah, so I think let's try and, as we tee these topics up when they come, the ones that aren't on consent, let's try and move them through, right?
Oh, agreed. I mean,
Yeah.
although it was mean, the Gordian thing's a good thing. I left it on just in case there was discussion. But I don't know that we need to have much of a discussion on it.
Yeah, we're creating an opportunity for discussion, but let's not force a discussion. If
Agreed.
there isn't one, let's just move it along. Okay. All right, and we've got a possibility of closed session. Got it. That makes sense. Any other items to add to the agenda or any other changes to it?
Mayor Pro Tem, the Community Development Director has her hand raised.
How do you see that? Community Development Director, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. October 10th was also slated as a PSRC presentation to kind of kickstart the city towards the development of update of the comprehensive plan. It's another high-level executive training opportunity.
And how long is that presentation?
Anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, probably with questions.
So let me ask, given what's on our agenda and given where I think people's focus will be, their mind space, is that something that maybe we put off? It's not urgent, but I think it's important that council members really tune into this. But is that something that maybe we put off for a little while? Just, we've got trying to get through mill site and so on.
Yeah. Absolutely. We could push it off maybe sometime before the end of the year.
Yeah, that,
Do you have a recommended date?
I'd say whatever date that administration would like to pick, but just sort of look at the remaining calendar and sort of pick a spot maybe that would have a little more room on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, super. Then let's move that off of this agenda. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
You're welcome.
All right, any other items then for the agenda? All right, then if there's no objection, we'll take that agenda as amended as approved. See no objection, so approved. All right, and then the agenda for October 11th, a special meeting at, I will find it on the sheet. 6 p.m., found it. At 6 p.m. on October 11th, special meeting on the mill site, including a potential closed session. Any comments or changes to that? Not seeing, if there's no objection, then we'll take that as approved. See no objection, so approved. All right, then, if there's no objection, that'll conclude our business for tonight's meeting.
Karen has her hand up.
Councilmember Christensen.
Sorry, thank you. Just wanted to confirm that the meeting that had originally been set for Wednesday tomorrow is no longer occurring, right?
That's my understanding. Yes, I see the city administrator and the mayor nodding yes. You are
Okay,
correct.
thank you. I just wanted to make sure, because I thought there were some things canceled and then there's some ambiguity, so I just wanted to make sure I was where I should be, so thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other business? And if there's no objection, we'll adjourn. See no objection, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.